On the 23rd of August 2013, Dovetail Games released the Great Eastern Mainline for Train Simulator. The route currently retails at £14.99. The Great Eastern Mainline stretches for approximately 114 miles from London's Liverpool Street Station to the city of Norwich. The route in Train Simulator, however, only goes as far as Ipswich in Suffolk. The branches to Felixstowe and Braintree are also included. The GEML was first opened in 1862 by the Great Eastern Railway Company. In 1923, ownership of the line fell into the hands of the London and North Eastern Railway. By 1948, Britain's railway network became nationalised and the route was placed into the eastern region of British Rail. In 1986, the GEML was fully electrified all the way to Norwich. During the same year, the line as far as Manningtree became part of Network South East. It's interesting to note that some NSC services used to continue to Ipswich, whilst longer distance Norwich services were operated by Intercity. That said, it wasn't uncommon to see a Class 321 EMU on a Norwich bound train at times of service disruption. Local services operating from Ipswich and Norwich were provided by regional railways, with first-generation DMUs, which latterly gave way to sprinters. Following privatisation, Network South East gave way to First Great Eastern, before the Great Eastern and Anglian franchise merged and National Express took over. Between 2004 and 2012, services out of Liverpool Street, except for a limited number of C2C trains, were all operated by National Express. As of 2012, the franchise is operated by Greater Anglia. In May 2015, Shenfield stoppers were transferred to TfL Rail, the precursor to Crossrail. It is the early days of Greater Anglia that is portrayed in this version of the route. The GEML is double track for much of the route, with 4 primary tracks between Shenfield and Liverpool Street. The GEML also employs bidirectional signalling, allowing for operational flexibility. The signals themselves consist of modern day colour lights, and there is a maximum line speed of up to 100 miles an hour. The trackwork itself is very stable and features super elevation. The route scenery is very highly detailed. The Greater London area is heavily built up and features some impressive structures and landmarks. Outside of London, the scenery becomes mixed between a more greener environment and some heavily populated areas of the country. All the stations and key points of interest have been modelled with a good eye for detail. In terms of traction, only one train comes packaged with this route. In this case, it's the Class 360 electric multiple unit. The Class 360s were built by Siemens and are part of the Desiro family. First Great Eastern ordered these trains to replace life-expired Class 312 EMUs, the 360s entering passenger service between 2003 and 2004. Unlike their Class 350, 450 and 444 cousins, which were introduced around the same period, they do not have end gangway connections, their final design being the result of drivers not being happy with reduced visibility for driver-only operation. The 360s are maintained at Ilford Depot under contract with Siemens. Despite their young age and recent refreshment programme, the trains are due to be replaced by Class 720 EMUs between 2019 and 2020. Presently, their future remains uncertain. The exterior model of the Class 360 is very good, and the train is certainly recognisable. Only one livery is supplied. In this case, it's the former National Express East Anglia livery, unbranded. Internally, the cab looks very good and nice and clean, as does the passenger view, which features the previous first-grade Eastern maquette, which was correct at the time of this route's release. Functionality-wise, the train has several lighting combinations: working wipers, cab lights, automatic warning system, and vigilance device. It's worth noting that the vigilance device is cancelled with Q, the same button as the AWS. The only problem with having the DSD on the same button as the AWS is that you only get the sound of pressing the AWS plunger and not the foot pedal. I know that DTG wanted to make this unit as easy to drive as possible, but I don't think that it would have hurt them to assign the DSD to a separate button like E and add a foot pedal sound. The train is driven with just a single lever, with A controlling the acceleration and D controlling the brakes. When applying power, the lever will go through notches. When applying the brakes, the lever has a smooth motion in order to give the driver more control. The train itself feels okay to drive. The acceleration and braking are very responsive. The physics, I believe, have been taken from the Class 444 released in 2013, which has much better brakes than the Class 450 that came with the Woking to Portsmouth route in 2012. In terms of sound design, the train sounds very dull and synthesised. Whilst DTG have been able to capture the familiar UFO screeching sound that these units are famous for, there is barely any additional detail, such as transformer hum from the pantograph, lack of noise from the air conditioning, and very short-range fading sounds. The only good thing I find is that the internal cab and passenger view sounds are quiet as they should be. This now brings us on to additional rolling stock that is available to purchase. Content creators Armstrong Powerhouse and Wagons have collaborated and produced the Class 90 electric locomotive, plus the Class 315 and 321 EMUs. You can purchase these directly from AP's website. However, both the 90 and 315 also have their own variant that you can purchase separately on Steam. Other recommended trains include the Class 150/2 from Armstrong Powerhouse, the Class 153 from Just Trains, plus the Class 156 and 170 Turbostar from Steam. Also recommended are the Class 86, 66, 67 and 70 locomotives for freight. There is one more Easter egg that is worth mentioning, and that is the Harwich branch. By default, the Harwich branch is included all the way to Harwich town. The track and signals are all in place. However, it is completely devoid of scenery. When questioned, Dovetail's reasoning behind this was a place to send AI trains to. To me, this seems a pretty long way to send trains to. They could have curtailed the track and placed a portal to despawn traffic just as easily. It appears that this branch could have been included, but was most likely scrapped due to the sake of getting the route out. Enter the Just Trains Mayflower Line extension. For a further $9.99, you can add scenery and a good mixture of freight and passenger scenarios for the privilege. JT have done an excellent job with the scenery, and the stations along the route have a good eye for detail. In the case of the branches to Upminster, Southend, Southminster, Clacton, Walton-on-Menaze and Sudbury was most likely down to a resource issue with the game itself. This route was produced well before the upgrade to 64-bit was ever even thought of, and as a result, I don't think that the route would have run very well, let alone at all, especially with the amount of scenery that was produced. It's worth pointing out that in 32-bit the route does struggle, especially in the London suburban area, even more so with a realistic amount of AI traffic. Like the South London network, the GEML is a resource intensive route and is prone to crashing on higher graphic settings. For me, 64-bit seems to have mitigated this issue with a slightly more stable frame rate. Your mileage may vary depending on your setup. Overall, the Great Eastern Mainline is certainly recommended, especially if you also purchase the Harwich extension from Just Trains. There is plenty of additional rolling stock and scenarios available for this route, which should keep you busy and stop you from being fed up of only seeing Class 360s. If you liked this video and would like to stay up to date, please subscribe and turn on notifications. As always, thank you for watching and take care.